Welcome back. So in this third video of the policy management series, we would understand how policy management works. In the past videos, we talked about the various organizational hierarchies, and we also talked about the PDCA cycle associated with policy management. So to begin, let me explain this whole thing all over again. On this matrix that you see here, on the x-axis we have the various levels of an organization, the top management, the senior management, the middle management, and the line and functional management, and the various cycles of PDCA, which is plan, do, check, and act. Now let me explain this cycle of policy management on this matrix. So as you can see, the top management sets the vision from which a concrete mission is taken out. And from the mission, the company's long-term plan is produced. Now this long-term plan leads to the various long-term plans of the units that the company might have. The units could be various plants, divisions, business divisions, or various sites. And each year, the company would produce an annual plan from its long-term plan. Now, taking these two together, we would have for each unit an annual plan. The annual plan is nothing but the business objectives and strategies arising out of the business issues of that unit. And from there, a set of items known as that comprise the policy sheet, which is the more important ones that the unit needs to lay focus or stress its resources for. So essentially, each unit forms its annual plan in accordance with its long-term plan, which is typically a 5 to 10 year plan, and also the parent company's annual plan. This point is very important. Please look at this set of arrows. Now, what does the unit annual plan mean? The unit annual plan is then cascaded into a set of its departmental annual plans, which each department of this unit would get cascaded in terms of what it needs to do on its business objectives and strategies. And the same way as the parent unit, it would have its departmental level policy sheet, which would comprise of the important items where it needs to lay focus or stress its resources. So this essentially is a center point of the policy management of a unit. From the departmental level annual plans, the daily management takes over, and the daily management essentially is the managing KPIs and the check KPIs with their targets and the improvement projects. Now, to complete this whole cycle, the first thing that we need to understand is the set of reviews. Now, policy review is nothing but a hierarchical set of reviews that an organization has in its own base, and essentially focused on KPI targets and its compliance. So whatever we set as the business plan here and here needs to be complied with, and it is reviewed through a policy review, which might have its frequencies ranging from weekly to monthly to fortnightly or whatever. But essentially, the more important thing is that the policy reviews are focused on KPI targets, the compliances, mid-course corrections, and what needs to be done to catch up on if there is a wide gap between the plan and the actual. There is another type of review which is known as policy diagnosis. Now, policy diagnosis, just as the policy review is focused on KPI targets and their compliance, the policy diagnosis is focused on the major gaps that the organization might have with respect to its management systems or the cross-functional management systems like cost management, new product development, quality assurance, delivery management, and things like that. So essentially, the policy review is focused on KPI gaps and their compliance, and the policy diagnosis is focused on the health of the organization. Having understood this, let's understand what are these cycle stages of PDCA here. So essentially, we discussed that The the plan is about establishing the company's vision and mission, identification of the business issues that are looking into the face of the organization, establishing the objectives from there. The do here is about cascading the policies and carrying out improvement. And the check and act is about reviews, policy modifications, and incorporating the learning into the next year's policy. Now, there are a set of tools that organizations use in this cycle of policy management. Let's look at them. At this stage, organizations might use market and product analysis, product portfolio analysis, tools like Porter's 5 forces, PEST, SWOT. All this can come handy to identify the business issues. Next, while you cascade your policies to the deployment level, value chain analysis might be useful. A KPI drill down or gap analysis is very useful. And benchmarking and catchball are some of the other tools that organizations use. And for checking and then acting further on them, end result analysis, KPI gap analysis, and tools like CEO diagnosis are used. So as you can see, I have explained the cycle of organizational policy management here. And if I were to write the process steps of this whole cycle, it would look like this. This would comprise of these 7 steps. So as we discussed, first we identify the business issues. Then we establish the measurable business objectives. Then we define the goals and targets for these business objectives, which is how much, and this could be done through carrying out benchmarking projects to establish targets. Then we develop the strategies, which is we indicate the levers or the direction of solutions to accomplish the strategies. Then we determine the tactic to facilitate them, which is what specific mechanism or specific means we would require. Then we deploy, associate responsibilities, and complete the project. And in the end, we standardize the reporting and review mechanism, carrying out gap analysis, revise plans, any midterm corrections if required, and fill those gaps through alternatives. Also, we mitigate the risks and then finally institutionalize the whole process. So this is the 7-step cycle which runs every year and is known as the policy management cycle. Now, so having defined your business issues, then your objectives from there, then your strategies and your means, let's understand how this whole step moves forward and then prioritizes them. So as you can see, the business issues are derived through the strategic analysis tools and through senior management inputs. Now the inputs here to the backend analysis could be any one of these or one or more of these. For example, the changes that have taken in the environment, the business environment, the higher management requirements, aspirations, past shortfalls with the business, the voice of various stakeholders, and the voice of business. All this would flow into the backend analysis, which would lead to the identification of business issues. So as we discussed in the earlier slides, the business issues are of 4 types. It either arises from a customer requirement through a VOC or the business requirements, the VOB, the business environment changes, or the shortfalls in past policies. These are the 4 things that define your business issues. To address these business issues, you define your business objectives. Business objectives are the results to be achieved with respect to the organizational vision. Essentially, they are the broad direction of work that the company will undertake. Then you decide your strategies, which is levers to attain the objectives, the how factors, or indicative of the direction of solution that you would take. When there are multiple alternatives, you can choose one strategy versus the other for the same objective. So the direction of solution, which is, you can see here, might be different, and that's how the strategy is different from one versus the other. And eventually these strategies will get fulfilled only through specific activities or the solutions or the projects. So as you can see, the objectives are the broad direction of work, strategies are the how factors, and means are the what factors. Having done this, or having created these line items of business objectives, strategies, and means, you will have a long list, a laundry list of items, and not everything will be important. So let's understand how to prioritize on these policy items. So once you have created this list of objectives, strategies, the means, and you have set the targets here, there'll be some items which will look more important. Now let's understand why some of these items are more important than the others. Essentially, these will form a policy sheet which will either have a major stretch in the KPI targets for the year, major innovations, very complex, having high level of cross functionality, or a high level of organization-wide change management. When you have one or more of these factors, you might consider them to be a part of policy sheet, and you should pay extra focus during the year on these items, right? And the rest of the items should flow into the KPI targets for daily management. So they would flow into the improvement plan for the year, and they would be executed by the lower levels of the organization. So this again reiterates what I discussed in the earlier video about the difference between policy management and daily management. Now let's go to another important thing, which is how do we implement these policies, these important items. For implementing policies, you need to address the 4W1H of each policy. So once you have frozen the policies and cascaded it to the lowest level, you need to track and review on a regular basis. You need to have a comprehensive project plan, and you need to have reviews through midterm corrections if required. Now you can see this chart here. This addresses essentially the where part, who, what, how, and when. So essentially, if you see this implementation sheet, it starts with the project area, the teams required, the strategy that is being cascaded from there, the means that you will deploy, and the various sub-means that you would undertake to achieve these means. The owners, the deliverables, the due date, and the complete project plan. And the last column shows here the way you would review it. So this addresses the 4W1H, which is a comprehensive project plan. So this is how typically the more difficult items in the year's business plan should be addressed. So with this video, we have covered, we have explained how policy management should work in an ideal setup. And then we have gone over to explain what does it take to have a good policy management system in place and how to implement good policies. Thank you.